Oh. Alright guys, time to get back to my roots. What I used to do on YouTube here back in the day. Pull out a few comic books that aren't worth a lot. They're not going to change your life, but they're just solid little stories that just make comic books reading fun. It moved. I can't tell there's a movie I'm excited about that's supposed to be coming out this summer. Anyway, I was going to do a review on each one of these books, but we got things to do. So I picked out, looks like 5 books that you might want to check out. You can probably get them relatively cheap, except for maybe 1 or 2 of them. But they just stand out because I just enjoyed them and I reread them. They didn't really win any awards, but they're fun. Okay, so we're going to come out with a big boy, Goon number 3. Okay. Now this came out I think around 2002 maybe. It's by Eric Powell and it's from Dark Horse. And if you haven't read the Goon, imagine kind of like a Depression era little town, a little EC Fora in there, a little bit of comedy and a little bit of rockabilly. Okay, it's a unique book, and yeah, came out in 2003. But it starts out pretty good because Eric Powell took his son at the time and took some pictures, stuck them in there with some word balloons, and probably out in Tennessee where he lives, and pretty much his son's running away because he has to do chores, of course, with dialogue. It starts getting dark and he's wondering what they're making home at supper, and he looks out and he finds this little comic book. He starts reading the comic book, and it's a lost tale of the Goon. It's Goon and Frankie when they were kids and how they met. And if you read the book, Frankie's his little sidekick. Tough guy, pulls out a knife, sticks, knife to the eyes, his big move. Well, it turns out he's a little mama boy sissy, and when the Goon met him, he was getting picked on by these boys. And the Goon steps up and asks him why he's kind of dressed like a sissy. And he goes, I don't want to be dressed like a sissy. I want to be dressed like that boy. So the Goon walks up to the kid who's picking on Frankie, knocks him out, and next thing you know, they switch clothes. And they go around. He's just infatuated with this, and the Goon's already kind of like a crook and enforcer, and he's getting in the face of some gangsters in town, and this is back when men were men, and little Goon gets in a guy's face and he knocks the crap out of the Goon. And then it has one of my favorite panels of the Goon ever. He gets thrown out and Frankie's trying to stop him, and right there, they ain't getting rid of me. And Frankie's like, no, Goon, pulls them back, busted up. These are kids. They go around town and they're being kids. You meet the Goon's mom and starts kind of setting up a few things. You see Lonely Street before it got took over by zombies and stuff. And right there's the man that made it all happen. It's his rival in town. So, they get ice cream, and all of a sudden the zombies start popping up. And Goon right away, even as a kid, is a tough guy, man. He starts taking out those zombies. Puts a great big huge stick through the brain of one there. And Frankie's flipping out, man. Goon's trying to tell him to defend himself, gives him an axe, there's guns involved. And Goon gets a hold of that gun. And even as a kid, he's already like taking out the zombies on Lonely Street. And this all ties into, when they're older and stuff, what's going on. And this is where a boy becomes a man. This is really the theme of the book. The boy becomes a man. Frankie's sitting there, he's crying. He's like, Goon, help me. And he's like, you gotta fight for yourself. And Frankie's flipping out and he's about to die. He shuts his eyes. And he sits there and he closes his eyes. When he opens his eyes, he's like, I killed him. I did it on my own. And he becomes Frankie. Cussing, spitting, axe-wielding, little tough guy. And he's just like, all of a sudden, he is the man that he's going to be hanging out with the Goon. It's such a good moment. And then they run into the boys. The Goon knocked the kid so hard he messed his eyes up. He's now looking in the wrong way, and they come after Frankie again. Frankie picks up a piece of wood, knocks the piss out of him, they start running. And that's where how Frankie and the Goon met. Of course, the boy is like reading that, and he's like, wow. And here's the funny dialogue. He goes, that picture book done opened my eyes. Back home, I got a loving family, a community of loyal, hard-working friends and neighbors, and a lush, peaceful countryside perfect for building a home with a family of my own. Screw that crap. Good thing I got straight before I went crying home with my tail between my legs. Yes, sir. After I get a tattoo across my face, I got to find me some of them easy women. Yeah, a true boy's fantasy. Yeah. Goon number 3. Moving on. If you're still with me. This one goes back to the 80s, man. And this thing is a staple of the 80s, man. You know, back in the early 80s, for you kids out there and stuff, 1984 was when they kind of predicted there was going to be a nuclear war. So as a kid, I kind of worried about that. It stressed me out. So it didn't happen, obviously. And then in 1987, Marvel had a crossover with their mutant titles, which was weird because they didn't actually cross over. It was just a bunch of stories kind of going on at the same time. And they had some tie-ins and stuff. So right in the middle of this, from 1987, Daredevil 252. And yes, the art is by John Romita Jr., which, yeah, he's a great storyteller, guys. I know this may turn some people off, but hang in there with me. This is a fast-paced, simple little story, and I kind of compare it to when the War of the Worlds came on the radio back in the 30s. And basically, when they broadcasted that, people actually started believing that we were being invaded by Martians, you know. And people started hanging themselves and looting, and it was just crazy, all over a fictional radio broadcast. Well, there's a little twist on this. Apocalypse has formed the Four Horsemen. This is where Archangel became Archangel, and he debuted with his big metal wings, and they shot the razor blades, and he had four horsemen that were, you know, war, pestilence, death. War, pestilence, death. Who am I forgetting? Famine. And what they did is they kind of tricked Hell's Kitchen into thinking there was a nuclear war, and everybody started flipping out. And what I like to kind of point out here is, it says 1988, but it's alright. Zan Nacita wrote this, and later on they had the debut of Typhoid Mary in a couple issues. And I've always thought that this lady on the subway with the big hair was really Typhoid Mary. She's sitting there thinking about, do I take that teaching job out in Colorado, leave the city? It shows everybody kind of living their lives. It shows where everybody is at in New York City. It shows a guy in prison sitting there like, how did I get here? And, you know, he's trying to talk to this cop and you know, the security guard, and he's like, screw you, buddy, shut up. And this kind of cracked me up because right there in the middle of Hell's Kitchen, at this point in time, I think the Kingpin had done a number on Matt Murdock's personal life. Karen Page had come back after being a junkie and a porn star, and now they're doing a hotline clinic, free legal help, and letting people sleep in the building that they're having. They're just doing good charitable work, and there's kids getting beat up. And Matt Murdock's trying to find out, and they found out they won a big case. Little big hotline place won a big case against a big corporation, you know. And Nacita really had some hippie values, I think, you know. Anyway, and then there's like this little boy. His dad's a super villain, but this little boy stays in a bunker watching TV all the time. And he's got rations, and he's always just been waiting on the nuclear war. And then it happens. You can see that kaboom, boom. And you have to go read the X-Men books to see what's going on. If I can see what's going on. There we go. And on this whole page, you know, it's the start of all hell breaking loose. Big explosions and big lights and stuff. And, you know, it's just 2 pages of seeing the horseman of the apocalypse, the villain, you know, just going through and just raising hell for 2 pages. The big ship of X Factor's coming in, and everybody thinks there's a nuclear war. The power goes out, the skies are smoking, and of course the first thing that happens is Matt Murdock starts trying to rally the people. And he's got the Black Widow there, and of course this is a fast-paced story. Just like that, everybody is out on the streets. It's smoky, it's night, and a guy named Ammo comes out of there, who looks like Wesley Snipes from Demolition Man years before it happens, and you know it's the 80s because he's wearing the animal print spandex. Comes up and says it's time to take over, it's a new order, and I'm just like that. He just rallies an army of people on the streets and bums. And through the rest of the story is how everything goes on, and how we're going to have to try to keep order here and stuff. And of course Black Widow and Daredevil hit the streets, and it's the tale of keeping order and stuff. And the prisoner that was in the jail gets out, and he's just all walking around, and he finds a baby that's smutty dumped in a right there. Whoop. right there, he finds a baby that's dumped. He ends up taking the baby and being responsible for him. So there's death and rebirth and fighting going on, of course, and militias coming up. And of course, you know who comes in to bring order out in the streets? All the Vietnam vets. Like I said, it was the 80s. The Vietnam vets come out, man. They're in their berets and they're in their uniforms. And of course, you know what? They decide Daredevil decides they're all right. He gives them a big high five, and they go out to take on Ammo's men. You know, it reminded me a lot of Dark Knight Returns when you know, Superman got hit with the nuke. You know, he stopped the nuke, and there was the EMT flash went all around the world. And if you read that, you know, it's where Batman got the horse and he rallied up the sons of Batman and he worked through the streets of Gotham and he whipped everybody in shape. And it was the only city in the entire country that just didn't go to hell. And of course, there's like, you know, Ammo and his men. They have a big fight at the end, and it's great action. And pretty much Daredevil ends up just like beating the crap out of Ammo in front of all his people, you know. And of course, there's endings, and there's people coming together, and they figure out that it wasn't a nuclear war. And Black Widow and Daredevil have their big talk. You know, just a bunch of little stories. And I read and reread that over and over and over. Just one single issue where the hero got put in a situation and you saw how people reacted to it. Not bad at all. Alright, this next one, I almost thought about leaving this for the end, okay? And I'm moving on here. There's two more after this, so hang in there. This is from the year 2000. This is JSA number 10 with a great Alan Davis cover of Wildcat, the Raging Cat. Wildcat, you say, at this time, he'd probably been fighting crime for 60 years, and there was like, how are you staying so young? Well, what happened is they found out that he actually ended up getting 9 lives, okay? And this is an issue where it's real simple. It's just a spotlight on Wildcat. Up to this point, Wildcat had been a mainstay. Batman respected him. I don't know if they'd worked in the fact that he trained Black Canary how to fight a little bit. But, you know, he was just a boxer. Well, you know, think Raging Bull in comics, you know. And, you know, I always saw De Niro playing Wildcat for some reason. And basically what's happened is that Wildcat, still, you know, looking a little aged there, broke arm, was caught in the bathtub. He barely got a towel on by the Injustice Society. Okay, the man with no powers and just a roughhouse boxer gets hit with a bunch of villains storming the JSA mansion, and he's the only one there. Okay, he's got Johnny Sorrow, Count Vertigo, Icicle, Golden Wasp, Tigress, Blackbriar Thorn, and Geomancer coming at him, and they're going at him all through there. And this whole book is just showing what 60 years of crime fighting experience, not losing your head, and being just, you know, an old school greaser, you know, badass can do, because he hands them their asses one at a time, you know. So, you know, and it turns out there's a lot of diversion and stuff like that, but he takes them out one at a time, and it just kind of goes to show you how cool those old characters are. See who wrote this. It was by David Goyer, who's writing movies now, and Jeff Johns before, you know, he hit big time. And Steven Sadowski did the art. Steven Sadowski, to me, is kind of a toned down Neil Adams. He's a great storyteller, man. You know, just great on anatomy, great on composition, great angles. Just a real good artist. I hate that he never made it. But like I said, it's just like one great fight, man. You know, Wildcat gets to show off what he has. You know, with a broke arm and caught naked when they busted in, and nobody else there. And it has little, you know, you find out it was all a diversion for a future story. You know, those guys kept Wildcat busy while Johnny Sorrow stole something. All right, I think I've shown this before in other videos and talked about it, but it's time to give it just a moment here. These last two are Alan Moore books, okay? And that's just by coincidence. I ain't an Alan Moore fan, but this is one of those books, and when I picked up, I just got it because it was Alan Moore. I did not realize what I was in for. This is a story of the end. Mr. Majestic was part of the Wildstorm universe, and he popped up in Wildcats, and Alan Moore wrote him like he was the Golden Age Superman for Wildstorm. You know, he's an alien from the planet the Wildcats came on, and old school and stuff, and you know, and he's, you know, a little cold, a little harsh, but it's like, it's kind of like the Golden Age Superman is how I always kind of read him. Not just Superman. I mean, he's an archetype of, you know, of Superman. He didn't make any bones about it. But this is about the end of the universe. The universe has expanded as far as it's going to go, and it started to shrink, and it's entering entropy, and it's over. And these are and Mr. Majestic is one of a small group of the last living things. One, traveling through space, searching around, trying to find a place to go before it's too late. And just an excellent, excellent story, about the end of the universe. He's watching the last of a few, he's kind of reminiscing. They're talking about what they've been doing, and he's watching another little race die. And he starts naming off people who are alive. And one of the things that's alive is this sentient form of syphilis that, has to have a host to live and stuff, and it can talk to them. And, and it's a bunch of old gods and the Wandering Jew and, a vampire, Lord Math, an abstract spirit of arithmetic, demonic Duke, the Italian that ties into the Daemonites, that ties into old Wildstorm continuity and stuff. And this is all that's left in the universe, and they're wondering where they're going to go. I mean, just look at that. And it's just an interesting story I don't want to say too much about, but a small group leaves with Majestic. Everybody else has just kind of decided to stay where they're at. And the Wandering Jew and the vampire, I think, and the syphilis all go with Mr. Majestic here to find, it's the last story of Immortals. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it has a bit of a, it gets out there with the ending. You kind of think they're meeting God or something like that, and basically it turns out to be something that looks a lot like Alan Moore. And I don't want to ruin that much, because this book, the narration, what Alan Moore was doing, kind of tells what it's going on. It's very rereadable, very enjoyable, just because it's so different from the comics that were coming out. So it's the closest thing to, something a little bit more original than what you're reading. It's an end. It's a one-shot end to a story. And I got this one because somewhere along the line, I don't know if I did a filing design or did something with Constant Bromstar, or somewhere along the line, I ended up talking about the old comic strip Pogo. And I'm embarrassed because I'm going blank on who wrote it. Oh, he was a Disney artist. Oh, this is embarrassing. Not even coming to me. But anyway, Alan Moore had been on Swamp Thing maybe a year at this time, maybe a year to the day. And Alan Moore is a great writer, man. He started on a story that kind of ended what was going on beforehand, right? Swamp Thing more or less got shut up and died. And then the anatomy lesson came out in the next issue. And that's where a lot of people think Alan Moore started on the book, and when he just spent all these issues redefining what Swamp Thing was, how powerful he was, how he's really a plant, took the humanity out. Then he had this great big huge story of Arcane coming back and Hell coming back, out of Hell, returning from Hell, and then he went to Hell and he saved Abigail, and there's this big wreck that took out Matthew. Just a whole lot of, brought the horror back to it, and just blew everybody away. And this is like in 1984. So in 1985, he came out with this issue of Swamp Thing number 32, if you're still with me. And I want to be quick because this is running longer than I thought. And basically, back then, when you had comic books that had long story arcs, 4 issues, 6 issues, maybe just a lot of intense issues, the writers knew, editors, whoever, the professionals knew to give you some breathing room. So you would probably get like a one-shot story that's just, kind of a little bit light, didn't really change the tone of the book, but you got a breathing room, okay? And basically what happened is these aliens came down, and it's Pogo and his friends, and you know who they are, if you've read the comic strip, but they're aliens in a turtle ship, and they're tiny. Well, not tiny, not Smurf tiny, but a crocodile, possum, and I don't remember what the other one was. And they've come to Earth, and this is by Alan Moore and Sean McManus, and it's called Pogue. Instead of Pogo, it's Pog or Pogue, however you want to do it. And it's so cool because the characters from the Pogo strip land in a swamp, and that's where Pogo took place. And it's Swamp Thing Swamp. And their spaceship is the turtle, and they come out of the turtle. And they start exploring, this new world in the swamp, and they meet Swamp Thing. The swamp, and he gets into, they're talking to the Swamp Thing, but you know, we understand the aliens, but this is how we sound to them. Look at that word balloon up there. So there's communication loss. They try to attack Swamp Thing, and their gun actually has an effect on Swamp Thing. Well, the story progresses from there. They ended up talking to Swamp Thing, and they tell a bit about their planet by drawing pictures in the dirt. Just great stuff. Going back to the simplistic stuff, trying to explain their aliens and why they're here. Just in these little puppy dog eyes through these, man, you start falling in love with these characters and stuff after all the horror and, you know, the setting in hell and everything that's going on. And all of a sudden, one of the aliens takes off his costume, and he's an alligator, and starts swimming in the swamp. And he sees these red eyes as he's swimming. And he's kind of wondering what it is. And all of a sudden, he sees these alligators come out, and he's like, "Brothers, my brethren, come on out. It is so good to see you." He thinks they're like him. You know, he's like, "Broodlings, my people, let us embrace, let us engage." And they hear the big scream. The Swamp Thing goes out there, and the alligators are just ripping up our little cartoon character. You know, it's still a horror book. And, you know, they just go all to pieces, and Swamp Thing breaks bad on these alligators, ripping them up to shreds, and, you know, everybody's hugging their friend. He's dead. They end up having a funeral for him. And they get on their ship, and you start seeing how big their ship is. That turtle is huge. And it's a sad little story. Swamp Thing, you know, is sad. They're all sad, and they leave the Earth. So those are just a few little books of lost gems to check out. Buy them cheap. You might enjoy them. And just enjoy.